One of the most interesting topics when it comes to Hunter x Hunter for me is that of arc rankings. It's not really about the actual numbers themselves or how the rankings shape up, as much as the reasoning for why someone would put one arc over the other. Hunter x Hunter is so diverse and variable from one arc to the next, with each having their own tone and style, and so I think that seeing which arcs people prefer in comparison to others can tell you a lot about what people value from the story, or perhaps from storytelling in general. Today I'm going to be sharing my own rankings of the arcs, from least favorite to favorite, and while this list has been in flux for a number of years, I'm pretty confident that this is where I stand. Let's jump right in, and get started with number 8. The Zoldyck family arc does end up being last on this list, but as I described in my video on it, this isn't due to it being anything near mediocre. Rather than the worst arc, I prefer to describe this one as my least favorite, or better yet, as the least amazing Hunter x Hunter arc, because it truly is still great all in all, and the main reason I have it last is because it's simply short and doesn't have as much in it as other arcs. And even that isn't a knock on it, because it is exactly as long as it needs to be, and I wouldn't want to change that. It is subtextually brilliant, telling us so much about the Zoldyck family dynamics and where Killua comes from with so little, and providing us with the specific context to understand why Killua is the way he is, along with several of the other family members too. Along with this, it progresses and displays the growing bonds between our protagonists and pivots the tone and plot really effectively, and all in all this is just a really efficient, substantial arc that does far more than people give it credit for despite it being my least favorite. Numbers 7 to 5 on this list are so extremely close to one another that it almost feels wrong to rank them, and that this could honestly change for me depending on the day. Today, however, I think that the Hunter exam is my number 7. It is such a great introductory arc, laying plenty of foundations for the plot, setting, and themes while ushering in a large portion of our cast in emotional and substantial ways. This arc is amazing for keying us into the ruthless pragmatism that characterizes this world and some of our characters, not holding back on either the charm nor darkness that permeates this world, and it's so full of subtle little character details that only really come to the fore on repeat watches or reads that it boggles the mind. The Hunter exam arc does everything that an introductory arc should do and more, and only very abstract, unexplainable subjective feelings and preferences stop it from being higher on this list. I'm one of Heaven's Arena's biggest fans, and I think it's mechanically sound storytelling at its finest. This arc had several jobs to do: transition the tone into something more dramatic, sinister, and dark, properly expand the world, introduce the concept of the spider in a more personal way, strengthen Gon and Killua, and more than anything, introduce Nen to the audience in a way that is fully fleshed out, yet not overwhelming. And it not only manages to achieve those functions efficiently, but it presents them in an engaging, digestible way while developing Gon and Killua's relationship dynamics and giving us a fun mini-tournament arc that is bookended by one of my favorite fights of all time. It expands the story and lays foundations that will become essential in so many ways, and more than anything, it's deeply engaging and sets the stage for the arcs to follow brilliantly. Heaven's Arena is the unsung hero for Hunter x Hunter for me. It does so much heavy lifting, but in a way that's so seamless that it disguises how much it really has to do, and that is the greatest compliment I can give it. Admittedly, unlike most of the other arcs, it doesn't have much of a self-contained story or plot within it, and I can understand how that could be a negative for some. But for me that's absolutely fine, and it works as a detour and a wonderful cog in the machine that is this story that allows it to fire on all cylinders in the way that it does. Greed Island is often criticized for a number of reasons, but to me none of those really hold up, and the step up in overall visual direction in the anime elevates this one to number 5. Describing Greed Island as a training arc wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but it just fails to take account of all that it does so well. Here is where we get the largest amount of indirect characterization for Jing, as we explore this game that is in many ways a reflection of the man, his ideals, and his philosophy. We are introduced here to the wonderful Bisky, who remains my favorite of Gon and Killua's mentors and who forms such a beautiful bond with them. There's also the sheer imagination and complexity that goes into the mechanics and player interactions for the actual game, feeling so authentic that it kinda feels like an entire isekai series could take place in Greed Island alone. Along with that, we have some of the story's standout set pieces in the amazing dodgeball match and the fight with Genthru, but what I love most about this arc is how it enriches Gon and Killua's relationship and how it lays so many phenomenal foundations for Chimera Ant through showing several red flags with regards to Gon and Killua's actions, behaviors, and relationship dynamics, but not punishing them for it. This is incredibly in line for the tone of the arc while giving our characters their greatest ascent, only for the crashing down to feel that much more devastating when they get thrust into an arc that does punish them. I mentioned earlier that the Zoldyck family arc is one of the most efficient arcs, but this one is the most efficient in my book. It's similar to Heaven's Arena in that it carries a huge load mechanically, but it also has the unenviable task of finally introducing us to a character that we've heard about for so long and turning him from a symbol and ideal into a genuine human being. And the end result is more than I could have asked for. The election arc has two plotlines that work in parallel, as we dive deep into the Zoldyck family dynamics once more as Killua rescues his sister whilst trying to revive Gon, and as the Hunters Association carry out Netero's final will as they try to elect a new chairman. This is Togashi at his most outwardly political, as he introduces one of the best characters in the series in Pariston and personifies his ideas about the topic through exploring him and his dynamics with the likes of Leorio, who steals the show, Cheadle, and Jing. The tone shifts once more to something more characteristic of the classic Hunter x Hunter tone that we've come to know and love, and the reintroduction of Hisoka helps a ton with that, while the return of Illumi has him at his most menacing and complex. But the arc also provides us with some defining moments in the series. Killua and Aloka's moments, Leorio's punch and hug with Gon, Pariston's speeches and lines, Gon and Killua's sad goodbye, Koala's musings, and the final scene that provides us with the series-defining Detours theme. All of these scenes and elements could easily have felt like a cluttered, incoherent mishmash without flow, but somehow Togashi is able to merge it all together in an arc that doubles as a series conclusion of sorts for the anime. The direction in the adaptation arguably peaks here and accentuates the already masterful writing, and overall I think this arc is a borderline masterpiece that deserves to be talked about among shonen's best. Many tend to separate the Dark Continent expedition from the Succession War, but for me they're so cohesive that it doesn't feel right to separate them. It's a bit difficult to rank an unfinished arc, but I feel fairly confident that the number 3 spot is where it belongs at the moment. The potential that the Succession War has is absolutely immense, but it's already a fantastic arc. The tone shifts once more to something incredibly grim and brutal. It is arguably the peak of Togashi's art, it contains the best introduction to an arc in the series in my opinion, and the sheer amount of engaging dynamics and new concepts introduced boggles the mind. Jing and Pariston, Leorio's role, the Kakin royal family, the different factions associated with them, the return of Kurapika as a character, and the focus shifting from Gon and Killua, which is a great decision to keep things fresh I might add. The micro and macro politics, the Dark Continent, the Nen Beasts, Hisoka versus Chrollo, the whole spider plotline and their hunt for Hisoka and how Illumi plays into it, the amazing set pieces. There are several new personalities introduced, Beyond, Seriednik, sorry for the pronunciation, Morena, Halkenberg, Oito, and more, and I feel like they'll only grow in substance. Togashi is so meticulous with this one at times that I can understand some feeling as if things are a bit too complex and overwhelming, but overall, the ceiling of this arc is unbelievable, and it has the potential to enter the top 2 and perhaps even higher if it's realized, and I have no reason to doubt that it will be. With so much potential for fireworks, with so many characters on this boat that could interact in very interesting ways, this arc feels like a powder keg that will soon go off, and I can't wait to see how Togashi carries it out in future chapters. The York New City arc is the arc that made me fall in love with Hunter x Hunter. I will never forget the first time I witnessed the end of episode 51 and took in Uvo's Requiem and how it just took my breath away for how brutal, bloody, and yet darkly beautiful and sad it was, how everything the Spider and Chrollo were about just crescendoed in this magnificent moment. The York New arc in general is incredibly bold, shifting the protagonistic lens to Kurapika and digging deep into his psychology while ushering in such a fantastic and poetic antagonist group. The subject matter obviously gets darker, but the presentation of the writing also gets a lot more thematically ambitious and abstract, and to this day I continue to find out new and interesting things about Chrollo. There's also awesome utility for Gon, Killua, Leorio, and Hisoka here, the introduction of melody, and a subtle but very clear progression for Gon and Killua's characters without them being the main focus while also building on the setting. This arc is enthralling storytelling on so many levels, with so much substance and all the hype, sadness, moral ambiguity, and emotions you could hope for, and to this day it remains one of my favorite arcs of all time. I have never experienced an arc like Chimera Ant in my life, and I'm willing to bet that I never will again. This is the most beautiful, devastating, poetic, ambitious, creative, dramatically perfect arc I've ever seen. It is supremely presented in both the anime and the manga, full of great voice acting in the former. It introduces a cavalcade of new characters, the vast majority of which are extremely engaging and impressive, and it develops them in all sorts of ways. It says so much and holds nothing back. It's full of so many legendary, heartbreaking, jaw-dropping moments, and in my opinion, none of the common criticisms for the arc apply at all. This is currently my favorite arc of all time, and it bewilders me that human beings are capable of writing stories like this. So there you have it. This is my current ranking of the 8 Hunter x Hunter arcs, and while I'm not confident that this won't change in the future, I am confident that this is what it is right now. I know that there are very few who will have an identical list to mine, so be sure to share your thoughts on my order, as well as your own ranking, in the comments below if you'd like. I hope you enjoyed my musings here, and do forgive me if I was gushing a bit too much, although that does come with the territory for this channel. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.